The town of Coventry, Rhode Island presents the Coventry Substance Abuse Prevention Task Force video series. We're working together for a healthy community.
I'm Lieutenant Blair from the Coventry Police Department. We welcome you to this presentation on behalf of the Coventry Substance Abuse Task Force, the Coventry Public Schools, and the Coventry Police Department. We just want to talk with you for a few minutes about drug prevention and how you can prevent drug use in your family, with your friends, and what to do about it. One of the things we want to talk about as we talk about drug prevention is how you can help prevent drug use. One of the biggest things that we notice from an investigative standpoint from the police department is that many times parents think or they know that something's going on with their children and they choose to ignore it. One thing that we ask that you do, that if you see something, say something. No resource is more important than the family when it comes to noticing what's going on. Obviously the police department's not there and not able to see what's going on a daily basis. I can't tell you how many times we've executed a search warrant on a house of a high school student, and the parents say to us, we had no clue that our kid was selling drugs right out of their house, out of the front door of their house, while their younger brothers and sisters watched, while their young siblings watched them sell heroin, prescription medications, and other similar drugs. Check on your children and family members. Many times when something's going on at night or during the day and something seems strange, again, parents choose to ignore it. And we ask that if there's a problem, many times these kids are abusing prescription drugs or even harder illicit drugs themselves. We ask that you seek treatment where appropriate and offer them the help that they need. Don't ignore the warning signs is the message we send to you today. How many times have you seen or maybe gone by many cruisers in Coventry and you notice that there's damage to the residence or there's something going on? It can be prevented. A front door smashed in is something that a parent doesn't like to see at early morning hours, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Many times we execute these search warrants. And many times, as soon as we enter the house, the look of shock on the parents is evident. They had no idea. And many times, or more often than not, those parents could help prevent us coming to their house by just taking some simple steps, and that's paying attention to what their kids are doing. One of the things we notice about abuse of prescription drugs, and specifically marijuana, is that the average of marijuana's THC content in the 1970s and 80s was just over 1%. Today what we're seeing is that some of the high-grade marijuana, the THC content, or the psychoactive ingredient in the marijuana, is upwards of 20%. Many people don't know that, but the addictive tendencies of it are much more significant than they were even just 20 years ago. And currently with the addition of the medical marijuana laws in the state, many youths have unlimited access to marijuana because some of their parents are growing it for medicinal purposes. So many times when we execute search warrants, we'll locate several pounds of marijuana, similar to what we have here today. A large quantity of marijuana, something that kids would never have had access to in the past, but currently they're able to get their hands on it pretty readily because it's right at home. So marijuana grows in Coventry that we located oftentimes can encompass the entire house. Many times, in fact, more often than not, when we've executed search warrants, we locate parents with young kids in the home, high school age and younger, that are having access to these drugs. And when we talk to them, we talk to their parents. These drugs are right out in the open. You'll notice from some of the slides that we're showing tonight that several of these plants can grow over 6 feet tall. And some of these plants can yield, if not several ounces, up to a pound piece. So again, it leads to a lot of drugs being in the home and a lot of things that these kids can have access to. It's become a business. A lot of people are doing it and growing it to support their family. Again, it's not uncommon for us to locate 10 to 20 pounds of marijuana in a residential home in Coventry, in addition to 80 to 100 plants encompassing many rooms throughout the house. One of the things that we've noticed as a result of the influx of the marijuana grows is different types of processes used to extract the THC or to make it more potent. One of the things that's been in the media recently is the explosion of butane honey oil, both literally and figuratively. It's burning houses, it's blowing up homes because people don't know what they're doing with it. And what they're basically looking to do is extract that THC from the marijuana and make a more potent form of either edibles or something they can consume, which oftentimes can give the THC content well into the 20%, and sometimes as high as 80%. It really is an explosion, again, literally and figuratively, of the amount of THC in these drugs. And the kids, young kids, high school age kids, are chasing this drug. They're looking to grab it because it is more potent, it's more desirable. A lot of times it costs more money, and so they're both selling it and consuming it because it's more desirable. It's caused big problems, and again, it can be much stronger than average types of marijuana based on how it's extracted. It takes many forms. It can look like beach sand or similar to beach sand. It can look like brown sugar. Oftentimes it can look like syrup or tree sap. They call it shatter. It can look like wax or peanut brittle. It takes many forms, all similar in appearance and color, but it can change. So again, we have several pictures of it here today. You can see what it looks like. Some of the things that we're noticing based upon marijuana use and different access to things that kids are looking at nowadays, or access to different types of drugs, is the prescription drug epidemic. As the doctor talked about earlier, next to marijuana, prescription drugs are being abused by more teens than ever before. Over 20% of high school students say that they've abused or taken prescription drugs without consulting a doctor. And even 1 in 3 teens will say that there's nothing wrong with occasionally taking some types of prescription drugs. And what happens a lot of times is either mom and dad or grandma or grandpa have those drugs readily available in their medicine cabinet. And a lot of times, the answer to problems, if you have a headache, you take a Tylenol. Well, a lot of times if they feel they need to focus or they have a big test or an event at school, they'll take different types of prescription drugs to help them focus, they think, and what oftentimes can happen is it leads to an addiction. One of the things that we've noticed with prescription drug addiction is that there's many teens, if not an influx of teens or an epidemic of teens, that have began to abuse heroin because it's more readily available when their prescription drug supply runs out. It's more potent oftentimes than these different types of opioid prescription drugs. And a lot of times it's cheaper. So they're able to get it when they need it and they access it. And what oftentimes happens is it leads to an addiction that can oftentimes lead to death. And that's again why we're here today, to tell you that take the opportunity to talk to your kids and take the opportunity to pay attention to what's going on in your house, pay attention to what's going on with your prescription drugs, and be careful of this stuff because it is deadly. And currently the trend is the heroines that we're seeing are oftentimes laced with fentanyl, which can lead to significantly higher overdoses in teens and adults, and it's killing people. So these drug dealers don't care about your kids, they don't care about you, so we're asking that you take it seriously and take the opportunity to pay attention to what's going on in your family, pay attention to what's going on with your kids, and stop it. Some different types of drug use and drug paraphernalia that we found in Coventry. Oftentimes you'll see heroin come in bindles. It can be in plastic bags similar to Ziploc bags. It can be in, like I mentioned, wax paper bindles. It can be folded in notebook paper. A lot of times people don't know what it looks like or don't know what to look for in the packaging. Parents don't know what to look for in the packaging when the signs are right there. If they see plastic bags with a brownish residue or a coating on the bags, it's something to be aware of. And oftentimes parents choose to ignore it. Hypodermic needles is the same thing. If your child doesn't use hypodermic needles for a legitimate medical issue, then if you're seeing hypodermic needles around the house, there's probably a problem. So check it out and say something. A recent trend too we've noticed, many kids are chasing what we call Molly. It's basically a pure form of ecstasy or a pure form of MDMA, or what they are purporting or believing, leading people to believe is a pure form of ecstasy. It's much stronger, it's much more addictive, and it can take many different shapes, sizes. It can be pressed into a pill, it can look like a powder, it can be different color powders. So again, people are putting things into their body where they're not really sure what it is. And we're asking parents, and kids alike to pay attention to what's going on. And if a friend or a family member is doing that, say something. Oftentimes the Molly is similar to amphetamines, where it's a stimulant and it can do unbelievable damage to the brain and unbelievable damage to a person's life, because they basically act crazy when they're on it, or oftentimes can. Again, they don't know what's in it, so be careful when ingesting it. Some different forms of Molly. It can be placed in capsules just like any other type of drug, stimulant. Some different types of ecstasy. Even in Coventry, we've seized ecstasy that's similar in shape and form to Flintstone vitamins from people in Coventry that have young kids in the home. So what happens if a kid ingests that? It looks just like a Flintstone vitamin. It can be in many different forms. We've recently seen Transformers, pills that look like Transformers. Again, they look like Flintstone vitamins. They're orange, they're blue, they're purple, similar in color, similar in texture, and a kid could ingest it and die if they're not careful. Bath salts has been recently in the news, and again, huge issue. They were selling it even locally at convenience stores and different novelty stores. It seems to have kind of taken a little bit of a step back to some of the other drugs, but it's still out there, it's still dangerous. And what happens a lot of times is they call these things something that most people would think isn't a big deal. Bath salts, oh, it's something you can throw in your bath, or something you can salt, you can put it on your counter, it's not a big deal. But they're changing the name to make it sound just like they do a lot of times with heroin or other types of drugs. They make it look like it's not a big deal, or they call it fun or life or whatever. They just make different names up for it, but it can literally kill people. The packaging oftentimes promotes it, we've seen them that have smiley faces on it, rainbows on it. It looks harmless, but there's serious and dangerous chemicals in there. Some different types of bath salts, some of the packaging we've seen. It can look like rock candy, like the rock lollipops or the rock candy you see a lot of times. It's sold in all different shapes and sizes. Some of the things we've seen, again, when we execute search warrants, is all this stuff. We see a variety, a potpourri of drugs, really. There's so many different types that the same kid will sell. This one here from the slide, we have over 10 different types of narcotics that this individual sold within the town of Coventry, 2 high school kids. We knew that for a fact because we watched them. When we executed the search warrant, we found all of it. So it's out there, it's in town. A lot of times it comes with guns. These were, again, from kids that were in high school. Whether they look like guns or they are guns, they're dangerous and kids are using them. Different types of weapons and ammunition, all from Coventry. And we just ask that you be careful. You pay attention to what's going on with your kids, with your family, and call us if you need help. There's resources available. The Substance Abuse Task Force is available, and we're here to help. Thank you.
The Coventry, Rhode Island Substance Abuse Prevention Task Force would like to thank the following speakers who have contributed to this video series. For additional information and guidance regarding substance abuse prevention and treatment, please contact the following resources.